Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, which will be Prism by Module Part 5, Slots and Slot Requests. My name is Rocio Ramirez, and I am the Digital Content and Client Training Specialist here at Exact. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please add your questions in the questions box. We will be pausing periodically to ensure your questions are answered. As usual, feel free to download today's presentation to follow along or to keep as a reference. You can find that in the handout section. And please do let me know if you guys experienced any issues downloading that or accessing that presentation yesterday. We had another webinar and users were not able to access that, so I can try to troubleshoot if that happens again. This webinar will be recorded and shared with you via email 1 hour after the webinar ends, along with the presentation. And the video will be made available on our YouTube channel. And we're going to give folks just a couple of minutes to get logged in and get their audio sorted. We'll give it 1 to 2 minutes, and we'll be back with you in just a few moments. All right, and without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. And again, folks, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop those questions in the questions box. So for today's agenda, we're going to first cover the slot request. What does a slot request look like? How do you request slots from your sites? How do you set that up to be sent to your partners? Then we'll move on into managing those slots. So once that slot availability is coming through, how do you access that information? How do you analyze that data in the system? And then last but not least, we will dive into sharing slots with students. This is a feature that is available for you folks that allows you to share those slots that are shared or given by sites to your students to express their interest in a quickly manner if they need to. All right, so starting off with our slot request. The slot request has a few components to it in terms of getting it set up and ready to send out. So first off, we'll talk about the configuration of the slot request. So you get to customize what the page looks like, and then we'll look into what the site sees when they receive the slot request and it's actually sent out. Then we'll cover how to send those emails out to your sites. And then last but not least, we'll dive into analyzing those results. So even though slot request is just one topic, there's a lot of moving parts to it. So we'll dive into those here. So before you begin your slot request, we do recommend that you consider completing the following activities, which can be a lot. So we'll kind of go through each of these. So first off, you want to ensure that each site has associated locations. So if your site has no locations listed, they are not able to receive your slot request communication. So it's super important to make sure that each site has at least one location listed if you'd like them to receive that email. You also want to ensure that there is at least one recipient listed for each clinical site if you would like them to be able to offer those slots for your program. You can also review your personnel mailing preferences. So even though you might have a location that has a John Smith listed to receive the email, maybe their mailing preference for the slot request is to not receive those. So double checking that information can help you just catch those small instances where mailing preferences might not be up to date. And these last three are in terms of so receiving slots, you want to make sure that you have any new cohorts added. So if you're adding courses and rotations for an incoming cohort that you have no student data yet for, it would be super important to add that in there. And of course, creating your course offerings and your rotations if you plan to request slot availability for them as well. So super important to have those in there, just because once you begin your slot request, you might be looking for a course offering and it might not show up for you. So it needs to be added into the system first before you can select it when building your slot request. And I do have a question from Nicole. Can you run a report to see if the sites have locations and recipients? And yes, we can. So actually, I'll take a quick moment here just to kind of highlight that I'll be going through this in the system to show you guys. So I'll be going through a lot of screens, but the presentation has a notes section, and every single page that I will be going to is listed on there. There's navigations to each of these, so you guys can easily refer to that if you need to find your way. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the presentation here, and I'm going to go back into our system here, and you can kind of see those listed here. So let's go ahead and take a look at our system here. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and go into one of our sales demos here just to show you guys what this looks like. And let me make sure you guys can see that. Okay, perfect. So the first item on our list here was ensuring each site has at least one location associated with that. So we're going to go over to sites, and we're going to go into the report section. So in our report section, if you would like to first see, does my site have a location? Super easy. It's going to be the one report listed for site reports. And on this grid here, all you have to do is scroll on to the right. I personally, if I'm looking at this, I always move the associated locations up first, since that's super just what I'm looking for. That way you don't have to keep scrolling every time. But you can kind of rearrange your columns as needed, but this is the column you're looking for. So as you're scrolling through here, you're really looking for those zeros. So anybody that does not have a location, they would not receive a notification. So here I have Ability Center. They have no locations. To address that, I'd go into the site, go into my locations, and add a location to ensure that there is that one location in there. So that's how you can usually find those particular sites. Moving on to the second item is ensuring that there is one recipient listed for each. Sorry, I have another question here. So you have to scroll through all available sites to make sure they have a location. I would recommend that. You can easily just kind of, the other thing that I've noticed some users will do is you can export this and you can filter that list. That way you're not scrolling. I know our demo data just has 31 sites, so it's very easy to scroll, but you folks might have a longer list. So exporting might come in handy. That way you find what you need. You may only have 5 or 6, and you don't have to go through each of those pages to find that. So that would be a good solution for that. The second item is to ensure there is one recipient listed for each clinical site. That's going to be our location details report. And on this report here, I'm going to go ahead and scroll over to the right, and the column I am looking for is associated personnel. So again, we're looking for those zeros. So if my location has no contacts listed, then they cannot receive my communication. And again, you can always export this report as well. But once you find the location that does not have a personnel, you can go into that location, go into personnel here, and then add an associated personnel. If your person already exists, you can always, of course, add them, select them, or click on add person to add them into your database. So this lets you kind of do both, either add an existing person or add a brand new person to your database. All right. So going back to our report here, the last thing is checking your mailing preferences for each personnel. So it's going to be in our personnel report section, and we're going to be looking at our personnel location details report. So on this report, this will just show you personnel listed here. If you're managing this on a location to location basis, you can easily check those mailing preferences there. But if maybe you just want to see, are they receiving my email? Are they not? You just kind of want to scroll through this list, or maybe again, export that to view it and filter it. You see your person, and then you're going to look at the slot request column. So is it set to yes? Is it set to no? Is that updated correctly? That's how you can kind of check that information here. All right, so 3 separate reports, but they're all conveniently located in the same section. So you have your site details, location details, and personnel details. All right, some of the other activities you might have to do is to add a new cohort. So if that is something that you need to do, we're going to go over to students. We're going to go into setup, and you're going to land on cohort already. So you can easily add in a cohort here if you need to. Adding a cohort, you don't need actual student information, just a cohort name and any groups you might be using, like we have here, residential and hybrid. And then lastly, adding in our course offerings and rotations. If you are adding in your course offering, maybe you haven't done that yet, but you want to make sure you receive slots for those, you're going to go into courses, and in the course offerings tab, we're going to go ahead and add a course offering. So this will ask us for our cohort, which was handy from the previous section. And then you add in the additional information that you might need to add in here to add in that course. If you are newer to Prism, you might come in here and realize that you cannot select your course. You may need to add it to your course catalog. Adding to your course catalog, you only have to add that once in here, but that might be an issue if you're not seeing that course in this section. And then last but not least is going to be creating or adding your rotation. So once you have your course here, you might open this up. You need to add in the actual dates of when the placement is going to take place. A quick way to get to that, if you are on the courses section, is you can click on placements. That'll redirect you over to that course. And you can click on setup and do it this way. If you would like to just check your dates or are coming from a different place, you're going to go into placements. You're going to select your course offering, and we're going to go into setup. So same way to get to a different way to get to the same place. And once here, we're going to add a rotation, and then you'll add in all of that information related to that rotation. We did cover this in a previous webinar in our courses and rotations webinar. So if that is something you'd like to kind of watch, that is available on our YouTube channel as well. All right, folks. So that was kind of adding in all of those, or kind of some pre-work to do before you actually start to set up your slot request. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause here and see if anyone has any additional questions. All right. So lots of activities here, but that's some good kind of work to get through, just to make sure when it comes time to send your email, you're reaching out to, all of your intended recipients here. So you've done all of the pre-work, and now you want to start to build your slot request. To build your slot request, we're going to go into sites on our left menu, and we're going to go over to emails up in the top banner there. Once we land on emails, you're going to see a list of all of the previous communications you have sent in the past. And to add a new one, we're simply going to go ahead and click Set up New Communication. And once you do, the system will then show you, first off, it'll ask you for a title. So if you're sending out a generic email to your sites, if you're sending out a slot request and a request for updated information, this can be used for multiple purposes, but you get to give your slot request a title or your communication a title. And then you're going to select your add-on activity. So this is not required for you to turn on, but if you are requesting slots, we definitely want to turn that option on there. And with your title, when you add this in, you may add in your program name in there or what the communication is for. Just keep in mind that this title can be used and included within the body of your actual email. So if that's something you'd like to enter or share with your sites when you send out your email, just know that you can include that title in there as well. All right, so once you decide on the title and the add-on activity, if any, we're going to go into the next portion of this. So if you are just focused on getting slot availability from your sites, nothing else really matters, then this is what your page will look like. You're going to have a configuration list here it'll show you the steps you have to complete. So you have 3 total steps. However, we do have a separate add-on activity called request for updated location information. So if you did go ahead and include or turn that add-on activity on as well, then you will have a screen that looks like this. So instead of 3 steps, you're going to have 4, and you will see there is a second step specifically for the updated location information request. So if you're just doing the slot request, you'll just have the 3. If you're going to include both, then you'll also have this second option here. All right, so let's dive into each of these different steps. So within our configuration, once we add that in there, this is what it'll look like. And so the very first thing that you'll need to do on this first step is to decide on the rotations that will be included in your slot request. So it's kind of hidden here. I feel like it blends in with the screen a little bit, but you're going to see a plus icon in the top, like the right hand side of the page. Once you click on that plus icon, a drawer is going to open and it'll show you the different rotations available. So of course you can see here I've filtered for a particular calendar year, which you can do because this list might get long as you start to use the system. But it will display everything by year. And you can of course filter, select the rotations you'd like to include, and then save your changes. All right. And so once you add in those rotations, this is what the system will show you. It'll show you a table with each rotation that you've selected. It'll show you the course code. And for our PTOT social work users, you will have these two separate columns that allow you to select the different settings that sites should be able to select from and the different slot types that they can see. So settings is going to be, can the site select from everything available, or maybe your rotation specifically just is looking for outpatient slots. So that's all you would like sites to be able to offer. So you can customize that here. For slot types, you might have first come, first served, interview required, student request. So depending on your slot type, if you want to limit what the slot types that your sites see, that is something that you can do. So our PA users will not have these two columns. You will just see the rotation and the course code, but everyone else should see these two columns that allow you to customize those options. Once you have your rotations listed, if you realize there's anything on this list that you might not want to include, you can of course remove those with the trash bin icon there. Okay. So that's adding those rotations to our list there. Next up, you're going to have auto notifications. So these are going to be automated emails that are sent to either the site or you as a school. So you can turn these on if you'd like to use them, or leave them off if you would like to not utilize this feature. But the first one is going to be our slot confirmation. So if a site does go in, click on the link, provide you with offers for those rotations that you're including, they will receive an email that's basically just a receipt that tells them, hey, thank you for offering slots to our program. This is a summary of what you've, given us, which can come in handy later in time if the site says they don't recall providing you with the slots, or maybe there's a miscommunication. That email will be sent to them as a confirmation. The second option you have is going to be the contact later for slots. So when sites are receiving this slot request, they do have an option to say, I don't know at this time, please contact me at a later date. They will of course then be able to pick a date, so they can say August 3rd is when I can, really discuss this. So if they decide to be contacted at a later point in time, they would receive a reminder on that date that they've selected, letting them know like, hey, you requested us to contact you later. It is now later, so please go ahead and click on the link, offer us slots. So these are automated emails that are sent. So you can turn these on to your discretion, but you will also have an option to then decide on what that email actually says. So previously, these emails were set up by our team, but you didn't have the ability to customize them. So now you'll click on that edit or just the edit pencil with the email template text there, and it'll open up a drawer here for you. So the slot confirmation email actually can be sent to both the site and the school. So if these are, one second, I'm so sorry, folks. All right, folks, I am so sorry about that. So talking about this confirmation email, it is able to be sent to the site, but if you as a school would also like to receive this notification, just as a reminder, you do have that tab here available. So here you have the email that will be sent to the site and the email that will be sent to the school. And you can, of course, modify that subject line, modify the actual email. You'll see the merge fields that are available for you to use. And this is all, once you set this up, it will be set and ready to be used with any communication you send out. So in the future, if you plan to use this again, you don't have to customize it each and every time. It will be saved for any future slot requests. All right. So those were the automated emails. In this same section here, we have the other setup section that allows site personnel to add slots at the site level. So previously, we had sites who maybe did not know which location the slot was for, or they had a workflow where they said, hey, I can offer you a one outpatient slot for this rotation, but the student can decide where they would like to go because we have so many locations available. So if there are any sites that have that kind of a workflow, it might be useful for you to turn this feature on. So the site would then be able to say, I am able to offer this slot for this setting, for this rotation, but the location is yet to be determined. So if that's something that your program might need or your sites might need, definitely turn this option on here. And let me see here, folks. I do have a question, so I'd just like to pause and see if it's something that is relevant to this screen here. Okay, and Ashley, I know that this question is related to the My Request and the slot request. It is possible to use both the slot request and my request. My request focuses really on the student finding their site for a placement and collecting all of that information through that workflow. But the slot request just basically asks sites, do you have anything to offer with no real student connection? So you can do this in parallel to my request so that while you may have students who are finding specifically their own sites, you may have a list of sites who have slot availability for your students. So yes, totally possible to do both. All right. So moving on here. So this is going to be an option shown to you if you have added the add-on activity to request updated location information. So if you turn on that option on your add-on activity list, this step will show up for you. There's no real customization for you to do here yet. Currently, the process for this feature is that you have a list of items that will be shared with your site. So things like their website, their phone number, their requirements, any notes you've shared with the site, housing and parking information, and personnel listed at that location. So you currently cannot decide, well, I don't want them to view personnel that we have on file. All of these are kind of these are all going to be shared with the site. You cannot turn any of these off. So your site will be able to see these, and any changes they provide to you, you'll have to make in the system. So they're not automatic changes. So your data won't change overnight. But this just kind of lets you know that this is the information that your sites will be able to see. And then, of course, provide you with any updates too. All right, and then moving on here from our requested updated location information, we then have our school contact section. So this is related to the slot request. So on the slot request, you again, referring back to one of our automated emails, we mentioned that that slot receipt confirmation can be sent to the school. This is where you get to decide who from your program should receive this information. So if you have your contact information here and you want to make sure you get that notification, you'll want to turn that on so you get this first automated email we saw earlier. So that kind of just lets you know, hey, there's slots that are being offered, who offered them, so you'd get that notification. And I have a question here. Is the information provided in an email? Yes. So the slot confirmation email will be an email. The requested updated location information would actually show up in the system. So I'm not sure which one you were referring to, Ashley, but slot confirmations will definitely be an email that is sent. So if you as a school contact want to make sure you get those emails, go ahead and turn that on so you get that notification. The other feature available here is sharing your contact information with the site. So we're going to take a look at what the slot request looks like for the site, but if you want to make sure that your information is on display so that should they run into any issues, if they need to ask any questions or follow up with you, they easily have your contact information available. Okay. And so then last but not least here in this section, we have the instructions and documents section. So we're gonna, again, take a look at the SLA request from the site view in a second. But when the sites click on your link, they first land on a page. And that's kind of what we're calling the welcome page. So any instructions that you write will show up on that first page. So if you'd like to reiterate some of the content from your email or just say, hey, thank you for working with us, you can offer slots here, all of that verbiage will go in this section. And of course, if you'd like to share any files with them as they are, using Exact to offer slots, that is also an option. So once we open this up, you'll see kind of our sample instruction here. And then of course, we've uploaded an attachment here. So if the site is on the slot request page and they want to maybe see some clinician benefits, maybe they want to look at your paper slot request form or anything like that, you can share that at that point in time so that they can see that. Okay, so once we save those items there, you'll then have to save up at the top here just to save everything you've done within the configuration. And that will then be listed on your main emails page. So on this page here, you'll have your communication. To go back and modify any of that content, you're going to click on that pencil icon here. And then you'll have additional sections listed here. And we're going to go into each of these in detail in a second. But before we do that, we're actually going to take a look at what your site sees before you send it. Since we just talked about what you can customize, we want to show you guys what it looks like as well. So once this email is sent, your sites will receive the content and they will have a link available to them within the body of that email. So the site would click on the link. They would then see the main page, and this here is going to be part of that instructions and documents section that we saw just a few seconds ago. So whatever you add in on that section within instructions and documents will appear here. And then again, those resources or documents you may have uploaded will show up in this view document section here. And to get started, your sites will go ahead and click on the start button there. And that will then take them to the first step, which is to offer availability. So your sites will see a card for each of the locations available to them. So this is where that association comes into play. Depending on who your personnel are associated to, which locations they have tagged to them, this is what they will see. So they'll see a card for each location. If you've turned on the feature for locations, if they don't know which location it's going to be for, they will see this last card that's kind of highlighted in this pink color. So this may or may not show up to your locations, but they will then see each card here. So once they decide on whether they have slots to offer, if they do have something to offer your program, they're going to click on add availability. And oh, 1 second, sorry, it went too fast. So once they click on add availability, they're going to see this jar here that allows them to then add in those details. The view for each site might look a little different. This is what a PT, OT site would see. They would select their rotation, add a clinician details, the number of students. This is where we see that slot type, any general notes to share with you. But for our PA users, this looks a little bit different. And I wasn't able to grab a screenshot of that, so I actually wanted to share that with you folks here. So let me go ahead and set this up here. It should be on our first screen. So we have the same view, but we have a card for each location. And when the site goes in, they add in an offer. All they have to do is select their setting, preceptor details, and then for each of those rotations, they can then enter the number of students that they can offer. So the view might look a little bit different for your sites depending on your practice here. Okay, so just wanted to share that with you guys. In terms of adding those slots, so once they add those in, save that information, they will see their card updated, so it'll show the rotation and which slots were added. If, however, let's say that the site says, well, you know what, I'm not sure, I'd like to be contacted later, or maybe I have nothing to offer you, so they select this unable to accept. But with the contact later option, if they choose this here, the system will ask them which date they would like to be contacted on. They'll add that in there and the system will then save it. So this is how the system knows when to send out that automated email to them, reminding them to offer slots. Okay. And so once your sites have gone in, added all the responses necessary for each of these locations, they will then move on to the next step. Now, if when you set up your slot request, you only decided to request slots, your sites will only have two steps: offer availability and review and submit. If you have also added in the request for updated location information, then they will have a total of three steps. So if you would like to include this update location information request, your sites will have a second step here. So they'll have locations listed on the left, showing them the different locations they're associated with. And for each location, they will have this middle pane here that shows them what you have on file. So address details, phone number, website, rural, underserved population details, requirements, any notes, housing and parking. And as we scroll through this list here, you'll also have personnel. So they'll see all of this. This is view only, and any changes that they'd like to share with you will go on this information to be updated box. So they'll type in any changes. If they have multiple locations, they can then click on the next location. This auto saves, so there's no need for them to kind of save as they go. The system does it automatically. So they'll go ahead and add that information there. But again, that's only if you are including that add-on activity. All right. So once the site has gone in, oh, and I do have a question here related to this. Is data, or so no data in Prism is changed. So no, the site would then add in their information in this box. You'll get a report that shows you all of that information, but your data will remain as it is until you go in and manually make those changes. So you don't have to worry about it changing overnight or changing if someone goes in and makes those changes. So they can easily let you know here, like, hey, we do have housing and parking available. Maybe we have a stipend. We have some additional requirements that you don't have on file. Maybe Jeannie Todd is no longer here. It's now John Smith. So you can, they'll make all of those changes on this card here, and you'll be able to process those manually in the system. And we'll talk about that in the upcoming slides as well. Okay. So the last step is to review and submit. So your site will then see all of their different selections. If they provided any location information updates, that will show as well. So they can briefly look over all of that here. And then once they're all done, they'll go ahead and submit. The system will ask them if they're sure. They'll go ahead and click OK, and that will then complete the process for a site. So it's very nice, it's very streamlined. Your sites kind of have a step-by-step walkthrough. They don't have to click through different pages or navigate to different pages of the system. This kind of just leads them to what they need to complete. All right. So moving forward here, since I'm not seeing any other questions, the next thing is to send those emails out to your sites as well. So then to send out your emails, we're going to go into sites, and in the email section for your desired communication, you're going to go ahead and click on send emails. Once you do, the system will then show you a table with all of the different you'll have a lot of information to look at here. You're going to have a location listed here. You'll see which site they belong to, the recipients at that location who are set to receive your email, any settings, categories, and then you'll have some additional columns that show you when the last email was sent. I think there's another column here. I forget which one is in here. I'll take a quick look in the system in a second, but you'll have your locations listed. And as you start to go through these, the easiest way to go ahead and include a location in your communication is to go ahead and just click on this open checkbox on the left. The system will automatically save your selections as you go. So again, you don't have to click save changes after every selection, but you can easily select everything on the first page by clicking on the checkbox at the top. One of the first things I like to call out here is that the system will show you all active and inactive locations and sites. So if you would like to filter your way through your data, there is a filter option available here. You can do just more than filter for active sites and locations. Maybe you'd like to reach out to a specific site's based on their settings. Maybe you use categories that you'd like to ensure you reach out to. So that filter icon will come in handy so that you can filter through your data, select your locations, and move along in the process. If your program just likes to send out the slot request to all active sites and locations, then it's super easy. You'll kind of just select up at the top and then move on to the next page and do that same process until you select all of your locations. And actually, let me go ahead and see if I can. Oh, the other thing on this page here is that there is a limitation here. Previously, I know in our other version, it was capable of showing you everything displayed on one page. But with Prism, there is a limitation of showing you 75 items per page. So if your program has like 500 sites, it'll only show you the first 75. So you would have to make your selections here, move on to the second page, and so forth. So just kind of know that you will have to go through a few pages depending on the number of locations you have. As you're looking at your locations here, you may notice some of the recipients listed here should or should not receive the communication. So looking at this here, maybe for this particular location, our John Smith should not be receiving this email. So if you need to make those updates as you're looking at this data, there is going to be a link on this page here, a view list of personnel that allows you to look at the report and update their preferences. So that'll take you right over to the personnel report. You can update them that mailing preference for that person. And once you come back, they should no longer show up here on this list here. Okay. Another thing here is that the system will automatically save your selections as you go through each page. However, the amount of data that it is saving as you go through each page will get larger and larger. So we do recommend that you click Save Changes after every 5 to 10 pages, just to make sure that there's no delay as you're going through this. Let's say that you are on your like 15th page and you haven't really clicked Save Changes. Once you do, it will take the system just a short amount of time to go ahead and save all of that information because it does save automatically. But again, after those 5 to 10 pages, the volume of amount of data it's saving does get a little bit larger. So we like to click on that Save Changes every 5 to 10 pages just to make sure there's no delay as you're going through this. Sometimes users can experience just a loading circle, which may take about a few seconds to save and then move along your way, but that can freak people out. So just go ahead and remember to save changes every 5 to 10 pages as you go through the system. But if you're just selecting like 1 or 2 pages, then there's no need to do that since the system will save for you. All right, but once you're done making your selections on this page here, then the next step is to go ahead and move on to composing your email. So with the compose email page here, you're going to see the list of how many sites and locations you're notifying, how many recipients will receive your notification, and what add-on activities are you including. Is it just slot request or is it also that request for updated information? We're going to go ahead and click compose email, and that will then open up a drawer for us where we can go in and customize our email that will be sent. So on the first step here, it will have a few options available for us. Override recipient's email is a great way to test an email. So if you would like to make sure that your email looks good in someone's inbox or just want to see what it looks like, you can go ahead and put in your email address here. So what I would do is, and actually let me go ahead and go into the system to show you guys this. Let's open this up here. So I'm going to go over to our site section and we're going to go into emails. And we're going to go ahead and click on send emails for this communication here. So let's say that I would like to test this email. If I would like to test this email, my recommendation for you folks is to go ahead and just select one location, click save and next, and compose email. And that way, when you're entering in your email address in this section, you would only receive these 3 notifications. If you've already selected like all 500 locations, then you would receive 500 emails when you override, which is something you may not want if you're testing. So this allows you to easily test your email as you're getting started, maybe compose your email, before you go through and select everyone. So this is a great way to test the feature. But again, if you enter in an email address here, the email will be sent to that email address and not your actual location personnel. So great way to test. The reply to is a nice feature. So when your email is sent, if a site were to respond to that email, they'll just hit reply and then type out a question or send you information. That information will be sent to the email address listed here. So if you have a common inbox that you guys share, or if there's you're sending it on behalf of someone and they need to receive the responses, you can go ahead and change that here. And of course, you can CC blank copy users as needed. And then you can also attach any files. And one of the common questions we have been receiving is that users are wondering what the difference is between uploading a file here, where you have this browse to upload option, and uploading an email here, where you are actually sending your email. And the main difference is that if you upload your file here, it will be sent as an attachment with your email. So when they open it up, they'll see your content, they'll see the attachment. If you upload it in the other section, they will only see it after they click on your link and go to Exact. So depending on, if you want to make sure your sites have information they need, you'll possibly want to add it here so that it gets attached to your email and they can easily have that available. Moving from that first step, the second step is to go ahead and select your template. We do have a standard template available here. So you have some content here that lets them know, like, thank you for working with us. Click start to get started. Thanks for the opportunity. But the biggest thing on this email is that it will include the request link merge field. And that's going to be the link that your site's access to be able to offer slots. If you don't like our standard template, we also do have an update location information standard template. If you're just sending out a request for updated location information, that's available. But if you don't like our standard templates or have different verbiage you'd like to share with your sites, you can easily add a template of your own. When you're adding a template of your own, you get to decide on the subject, you get to decide on your headers and footers. So if you would like maybe just your school logo in the top, but no exact logo, you can do that. Our default is to have the program logo at the top, exact at the bottom. So you get to decide that, and then you get to begin typing your email here. To add in a merge field, we'll just say we're going to write dear at first name. And you can go ahead and type that in there. So very easy to build a template, but you'll just give your email template a subject line, a name, and you can then save that and use that for future use. So super easy to do that. Once you've selected your template, you will then move on to preview. So you'll see a preview of your email here, and you get then to decide how your email or when your email is sent. So send email now means that your email will be sent instantly. So if I wanted to send an email right now, I'd click on send. However, let's say I'm doing this Friday evening and I want this to go out on Monday, then I'll go ahead and select the second option. When I do, The system will then show me this date and time field. So I can then easily say, well, I would like this email to go out next week on a, we'll just say it goes out on March 6th. Maybe I want to send it at 8 a.m. in the morning, so I can go ahead and choose that date and time. So you do have to go down to the minute there, but once you pick your date and time, that will be reflected here in this field, and you can then schedule your email. All right. Any questions on scheduling your email or selecting recipients before we move forward? Oh, and I do see a hand raised. One second, folks. I'm going to go into attendees list here. It looks like Scarlett has a question. I went ahead and unmuted you, Scarlett. You might have to unmute yourself as well, but if you have a question.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had time to just quickly show us a couple of the other templates that you had built in there.
Oh, yeah, of course. I write a bunch of them. And sometimes they're just good use to like as a good starting point to like see what we have. But these are let me go ahead and open that up here. So that's our standard one. So these you do have available, but we have one I think before this kind of just has both update location and slot request included. So that's what that looks like there. Um, And then we have the just the slot request. So if you're not sharing the update location information, this kind of just lets them know um, that we have there. So these are just samples we've created to showcase to you guys. Again, this is just update location information. And then this formal template, I'm not sure what this one says. I think this might have been just a copy of this. But the idea is that you get to really build your own. If you guys would like to see these or would like a copy of these, I'm more than happy to share these with you. But as you send these communications out, you may not just send out a slot request, right? You might have other emails. Maybe you have an event. Maybe there's changes in your program and you want to send it out. You can build your own and then have those as reference here. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to the next piece of this. So let me go ahead and um, let's see here. And I'm going to go ahead and go back into our presentation. One second, folks. Just to make sure we have, so we've talked about sending our emails here. And now we're going to go ahead and talk about, oh, this is an important piece here. So I went ahead and went back to our presentation here. But let's say that you've already scheduled your emails, but for any reason, someone let you know maybe last minute, like, hey, it's actually not John Smith, it's Janet Smith that should receive the notification. You need to cancel that email so it's not sent out. You do have the option to do that. So within our email section here, for your particular communication, we're going to go into the email dashboard section. Once you open up the email dashboard section, the system will then show you any scheduled, in progress, or sent emails. So if you are scheduling for a future date, those will show up. You can kind of easily see that this is scheduled. But if it's already been delivered, it'll show like a green status showing sent, delivered. But let's say that this particular person should not receive our email. What we'll do here on this screen is select the users on the left-hand side with those check boxes. And then you're going to go ahead and click on the X here at the top, which is the cancel function. So once you cancel that, the system will go ahead, it'll ask you to confirm. And once you do, you'll then see that the status for these has changed from scheduled to canceled. So if you do need to cancel any emails that are outgoing, you can do that within this section of the system. All right. Now, once your emails are actually sent, you may want to review who received your email or maybe who did not. Let's say you had some bounced emails, or just want to see how your emails are doing. Are people opening up your messages? Are they reading it? Are they offering slots? So, our email dashboard here will be that report that lets you kind of get some insight into that. So once we open up the email dashboard, same section, just different purpose here. We have this table available. So again, the status will tell you where your email is. So if it's scheduled, it has not been sent yet. If it's in progress, let's say you instantly sent an email and it's in progress of being sent, that's where you'll see that status. Anything green is good. But it does give you a difference in terms of what status is it in. Has it just been sent, but the site has not opened it? Have they opened it? Maybe they didn't click on the link, or let's say they've opened it, they've clicked on the link. That kind of lets you know where your email is in terms of kind of if they've seen that notification. You will also see some statuses for failed. So there's different instances for failed. One of the things we recommend you guys do is just to go ahead and filter your view for that particular status. So you can then try and figure out why your email failed. Was it maybe that they have firewalls in place and you have to send them your whitelist letter? We do have a whitelist letter available that you can send them. It's basically a bunch of technical stuff, but they have to figure out, they send it to their IT team and they basically allow emails from our domain to be sent to them. Or maybe it's going into their spam or junk folder that they have to update and just allow emails from Exact to be sent to them. Maybe there's a typo in their email that you have to change. So again, you can easily filter for those failed options with that filter icon there. Another thing that you have available on this report here is going to be the subject. So when you click on the subject line, it actually opens up the content of the email. So if you'd like to see what the email looks like after you've sent it, or let's say that you want to, maybe the site reached out to you and said, "Hey, I lost that email. Can you just send me the link one more time?" You can easily copy that link, send it to that person, and they'd receive that. And I do have a question here from Scarlett. Can you view the email addresses of the recipients before sending the email templates? And that is a good question. I actually think that feature recently was removed. I'm going to go back into the system really quick just to show you folks. So in some parts of the system, in this first step, it would actually show you the recipients on the left. So you could easily see like who was receiving your email, and you can remove people if needed. This has actually gone away. In this part of the system, you can only see the total number. So that's not an option here. Um, you can of course see that when you're going through and selecting your locations, but when you're drafting your email, that is not something that you have, just the total number of recipients. And Scarlett, let me know if that's something that you think it would be beneficial to have. We can always pass that feedback along to our team, so they can consider that for future changes to the system. Okay, so moving back to the system, our presentation here. We're talking about emails that were sent. So on this page here, we were talking about that subject line that you guys can see. So you can view the email. Maybe they are just not receiving emails. You want to send them the content. You can easily copy this, send it their way. Another thing you have available on this page is going to be the request link. So let's say that someone sent you a slot request paper form back, or they emailed you and they said, "I can give you this," and you have to put that in the system. You can also use this to go ahead and add those slots in the system, but the view option will allow you to go into that slot request and see what it looks like from the site's point of view. So easily allowing you to go ahead and open that up and see that, add slots if needed, so you get that access there. Lastly, on this page here, there's a lot of columns available, but one of the other important columns here is the resend option. So if, again, the site maybe says, hey, I didn't get that email, or you just like to resend it, there is that option there where you can resend an individual slot request to a user. All right. So once your emails are sent, the other thing you'll want to do is to also review your responses. So are sites offering slots? Are they updating location information details? Any of that stuff, you will want to view that information. So we do have a response report available. This response report has been upgraded. Before, if you folks have been with us for some time, you may have remembered or may remember having to download this report. It was a download only report, and it was updated every like week or so. But this report has been updated. It is now fully functional in the system, so you can see the data on the system. You do not have to download it, and it is updated in real time. So any changes that sites are making, adding slots to your database, you will see these reflected right away within the system. And you're going to have two tabs depending on the activities you have turned on. So if you've requested slots but not updates, you'll see just the one report. If you have both, you'll have two tabs. So that kind of lets you know you have two reports to access here. Now with each of these here, you'll see your location listed. And then for the slot request response, you can see slots offered, contact later, or just no response. Who was the person who actually made those changes? And if they've offered slots, you will have a view icon in the view details column. And once you open that up, it will open up a jar here and it'll show you kind of that similar to the slot confirmation email, just a view of what they've offered. So you'll see each rotation listed and whatever they have offered here on this page. If you do want to see, just we'll talk about how to actually view all the slots that have been offered for a particular rotation, for a particular course or course groupings. But this report just kind of lets you quickly see whether they've offered slots or not. And you can always, of course, click on that view icon to view additional details. The other tab is if you are requesting updates to the location information. If you are, this will only show you information if the location has gone in and actually made changes. So you'll see each location listed. And again, you're going to have that view option here. Now, with those changes here, those will be listed, and you do have the option to mark as updated. Now, this particular function is really helpful for each program so that you can have a to-do list of sorts. So you go through and you'll see here each location. So you can kind of go in, view the changes, but the idea is that any changes they've offered, you have to manually go in and change. So for example, here it says Nellie is no longer here. Please remove her. If I would go and remove her, I'd actually have to open up my location, remove that person. The second item is they require a flu shot. So I'd have to go in, update that requirement. And once that's all done, then I would go ahead and mark that as updated. So clicking that does not actually process the changes that they've changed for that their location. It just indicates within this page here that you've made or you've updated that information. So any updates are manually done in the system at this time. All right. Any questions on reviewing the information? I'll give it just a second to see if any folks have any questions. All right. So no questions. We're going to go ahead and move forward here. All right. So now we're going to move on to managing those slots. So once you have that slot information, you want to take a look at what's available. How do you do that? So in Prism, you do have the ability to view or manage your slots in a few ways. You can do this by site, by location, by course, and by group or placement group. So it really depends on what you're trying to do in the system. You may like one view over the other. It entirely depends on you as a user, but we're going to show you all the ways that you can do that in the system. So if you would like to add perhaps a slot, maybe a site has gone in, offered you some slots, and you'd like to add that, or just view information by site, you can do that here. So this is going to show you all of the slots for all locations associated with that site. And again, this is going to be regardless of who added it, whether it's you as the school, the site has added it, but you're going to see that by going into sites, and then you'll select your site and you're going to go into the slot tab. So on this page, you're going to see any rotation, any cohort for all of the locations under that one site. So you can easily see that information, modify slots. You also have the option to add a slot as well. So this is where you would see that kind of information here. Another thing here is, let's say you're looking for a particular location. You really want to hone in on your view and just see that one location. You'd actually go into the location itself instead of the site. And of course, you can add slots in here. You can actually modify slots if needed, but this will just show you slots for that one location. All right, let's say that you want to view your slots by a particular course offering. So you don't necessarily need to know one individual site. You just want to see all the sites, all the locations for your clinical practice 3. So if you were trying to focus in on one course, then you can go into placements and you're going to select your course and you're going to go into the slots tab. Now, the only thing with this section here is that you can only view and edit existing slots. You do not have the ability to add a brand new slot. So if you are adding slots that you've received through other means from exact, let's say someone emailed you, someone faxed you something, you would have to do that by site or by location. But if you're just trying to analyze your slots, then this is another good way to do it. Once you click on these slots, you're going to have a dashboard view first. So this kind of breaks up your slots by setting, rotation, slot type, slot status. So if there's anything in particular you'd like to see, these dashboards are clickable. So you can actually click on that particular setting or status or type, and it will show you a report of those specific slots. So it's a nice interactive dashboard. However, if you just want to see the list, you're going to go over to your list view, and that will show you all of the different slots for that one course offering. So here, of course, you'll have some additional information you can look at. You can modify that information. You can click on that pencil icon, but no adding is available on this section. All right. Another way to view slots is going to be by group. So this is going to be a bundle of course offerings. And depending on your program, you could do this in different ways. But one of the most common ones we've heard about is grouping your course offerings by cohort. So if you're trying to see all of the slots offered for your class of 2024, 2025, this is a good way to do that. And again, you can only view and edit. But to do that, you're going to go into placements. You're going to choose your placement group and you're going to go into the slot section here. And you do get the same view. You get the dashboard first. It will show you all of your different slots. And of course, it is interactive and clickable for you to filter and find a report of any slots you're looking for. Otherwise, you're going to go into your list and your list will always show you everything that's been offered. So this will combine all of the different rotations together. So here we have clinical practice 2, 1, 4 for that same grouping that we've done, which is our class of 2024. So depending on your grouping, you'll see those different rotations listed. All right. The last thing we're going to talk about today is sharing your slots with your students, which is, if you know the term, we call it publishing slots, but basically allows your students to be able to express their interest. So you can publish any type of slot to a student without a wish list. so that they can actually see what's available. So some of the reasons why you may want to publish. So again, you might have a specific slot type. So first come, first served is very common. If your program has any of those, it just means that, hey, they offer the slot to multiple programs. Whoever can come with a student name first gets to reserve that. So publishing will come in handy for some of these time sensitive slots that you may need to, work with a student for. Other programs just want to show students what's available. They don't need to collect their preferences yet via wish list, or maybe they don't do that at all, but they want to share that information with their students. It is an easy way to publish that. One of the caveats of using a publishing slots is that once a slot is published, it's not easy to unpublish that. So just something to note there. And one last thing here is that this feature may not be enabled for your program. The easiest way to know that is as we're walking through these screens, you may not have the publish option. Your students may also, if you look at a student account and they don't have a publish slots menu option, that's the easiest way to know if you have this feature on or not. If it's something you're interested in using, you can of course request that via contacting support, but we're going to show you what this workflow looks like. So to publish slots, we're going to go into placements. Now there's two ways to get here. It depends on whether you're doing this for a single course or you are doing this for multiple courses. So you may have to just select your course offering or select your placement group. We're going to go into the slot section in the list view is where we're trying to get to. And once we're on the slots tab within the list view, we're going to find the slots we'd like to publish. So we're going to go ahead and select those different slots, and you can actually see on this report here, it actually lets us know whether something has been published or not. And once we select our locations, we're going to have this, we're going to select notify student. Once you do, the system will redirect you to this page here where it might have to, if you're including this for multiple rotations, you'll have a different card for each one, for each of the courses. But for each of those, you will see which students would be receiving your communication, which is actually a clickable option here. So if I want to see who from, within this course offering is going to receive the notification, will be able to express their interest. I'll click on that. I'll see the full list of those students there. And to publish those slots, you'll go ahead and just click on Publish Slots. The system will ask you to confirm if you are sure. And once you do, the system will let you know that those slots have been published. Now, within the same workflow, it will ask you if you'd like to send out an email notification to your students, since when you publish, there is no alert that goes out or like an auto notification that is sent. So you do have the option to send out an email to let them know, hey, something is published, go ahead and express your interest. So that's an option. If you decide to notify your students, a drawer will open up here, so you'll get to look at your recipients listed. Again, override works really well for testing. So if you'd like to see what this email looks like, you can do that here. The reply to, so if your students were to respond to this email, that email response would go to the user listed here. You can CC and blind copy users as needed, and you can also upload any attachments you might need to share with them. On our second step here, we do have our template. Our standard template currently lists this context here, and it just says we have received a few clinical slots. It includes a table that shows them what has been offered, so location details, settings, rotation. But it also does say, please respond back to this email if you're interested in these slots. And we realize that some programs may want students to respond back via email, which is great. So this template would work for you. However, if you would like your students to express interest via exact, your template might need to look a little different to not cause confusion with this line here. So you may have to build your own template. I did include one of the templates we've drafted in the notes section of our presentation here, but that just kind of says, hey, please log into exact and go to publish slots to express interest. So instead of responding back to the email, that template does say that there. So it's available for you guys if you'd like to take a look at that. Otherwise, you'd select your template, you can add your own template, and then you're going to move on to the preview of it. And this is where we see the preview. This is the template we have on the notes section available for you to access. But then once you're ready, you're going to go ahead and send that out to your students. All right, and that is how you publish slots. So moving forward from that is how do your students go ahead and express their interest. So this is what I mean by checking if you have the feature. So your students will have a publish slots tile. So if you don't have the ability to publish or your students don't see this tile, then you know you don't have the feature available. Not everyone uses this feature, but if you would like it, make sure to contact us to turn that on for you. But your students will click on that option there, and what the system does, it simply shows them all of the different locations available. So it'll show them the location, the rotation it's for, setting details, slot types. The students can click on the name of the location to view the profile. But once they've made their decision, they can then say, I'm not interested or I am interested in that slot. Once they do, the system will ask them to confirm, and it will then update their interest here on the right. If they were to change their mind, they can click on that drop down and say, I'm no longer interested. So that is an option available for them. But they have those two options there. All right, so once the student has expressed their interest, the next item is for the program to then send that interest to the site, which we do have available. So how do you share that interest with your sites? So this is going to take place from that slot section, that same section we've been in for a particular course offering or placement group. But on this report here, you will see next to this published column, students interested. So as your students begin to click on that interested option, they will show up here. You can quickly hover over it. You'll see the student names if you just want to know who's interested. But if we're sending out the notification, we're going to actually click on that field there. And the system will then show us the students we'd like to include. So once here, if you want to make sure you select everyone, click on the checkbox at the top of the grid. Otherwise, just pick and choose the students you'd like to include in your notification. One of the things that you can also do on this page is in terms of who will receive your email at that location, it will show you those recipients listed here, but you do have a pencil icon that allows you to go in and see any other additional recipients you can include for that location. So if I, for example, wanted to make sure Ronald also received that, I check that off, update it. It would then include both Tammy and Ronald. Otherwise, once I've selected the students, I'd go ahead and then send the interest to the location. Then I'll get those three jars. And again, you'll have some similar options here: overriding, the reply to, CCing and blind copying, attaching any files as needed. So you can utilize any of those features there. On the second step, again, we have our standard template available, but you can, of course, build your own or select a different one if you've already built one in the past. And then the last step is to preview your email. So you get to preview it, take a look at it, make sure it looks good, and then send it on its way once you're ready. All right. And so once it's sent, we're going to quickly show you what that looks like in terms of the site itself. So the site is going to receive your email. They will then have a link to click on. Once they do, they'll be redirected to our system, and they're going to see their location information, what they've offered. They can add some general comments for you that aren't specific to any student. But what they will do is for each of those students that you have shared, they have the option to view their resume if they've uploaded any, and then in the response column, they will then say this is a preferred match, acceptable match, or not a match, add any details for you, and then update So they're going to have to click on update to just save everything that they've entered so far on this page. Okay, and then once they've done that, how do you as a program review that, the site, what the site has actually responded to that request? So back on the same page here, we're going to look at our slot section. Once we go in this section, the same column or the same field that we used to send out the email response is going to be the same pathway for us to review their response. So once we click on that interested students link, the system here, we first selected the site or the student, sorry, and sent the interest. But when reviewing, all you have to do is get to this page and you're going to see location response and any location comments. So any details that they provide to you will appear here. So you can easily see, hey, this is a preferred match. I can go ahead and, work on any other activities that I need to do before I place that student with that location. So that is the process of publishing slots for students to be able to share with sites. All right, folks, any questions on publishing slots? Okay, awesome. So at this point in time, I believe that was it for us. I'm going to double check here. It does look like that was the last slide. Awesome. So we did get through that with record time here. I'm just going to double check here if there's any other questions that folks might be having. So I'll double check here. But otherwise, I believe we are just about done with today's webinar. Oh, I see a question here. The question is, do you still recommend adding a separate location for each setting if the same location is being used for multiple settings or requirements? I'm going to read that again. Sorry, Scarlett. I want to say that is a PA question. And I say that just because it's setting and location specific. So, Scarlett, I don't have an answer right away for you. Let me go ahead and talk to some of my other colleagues and see if that is still a recommendation. If the location is being used for multiple settings or requirements, I just want to make sure I give you the right answer for that. So I will get back to you. Awesome. Wonderful. Some of us here at Exact are inclined to specific different disciplines depending on who we work with. So PA is not my forte, but I will find out for you. Any other questions for us today? Okay. It looks like we have no questions and we have 10 minutes to spare, so I will give those back to you folks. So that brings us to the end of this webinar. If you have a few minutes, we'd love to hear from you. Stick around once this webinar ends for a short survey to let us know how we're doing, what can be improved, and any additional topics you'd like to see in the future. So thank you so much, folks, again, for your time and patience. Everyone, I hope you have a great rest of your day.